I'm going to tell you the full story. I bought this camera on the Isle of Skye on holiday in Scotland last summer, so in summer of 2023. It was from a little vintage shop. It was 25 quid. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought it looked really cool and it would be interesting to try and use it. So I picked it up. Well, I've just recently got back from another holiday to Scotland. This time we went to Argyll and we stayed near a little place called Artfully. It was very nice. And I thought, I bought this camera from Scotland. I'm going back to Scotland. If I'm ever going to pick it up and shoot it, this is the place, this is the time. A little bit of information about this camera. I believe it's from the 40s or the 50s, so it's pretty old, and there was a few things on it that were not working. I stripped it apart and I restored what I could, although I'm no expert at all. And I did film a whole video on that and then realised it would be incredibly boring to watch, so don't worry, I won't make you watch it. But I did a whole restoration job on this camera. I bought some rolls of Pan 100 black and white film, as cheap as 120 film comes, which isn't the cheapest. I took it to Scotland and I shot 2 rolls. I've just got the scans back. I sent them off for development about a week ago and I've just got the email today with the files. So what we're going to do is we're going to look through them and see what actually came out of them. Disclaimer. Disclaimer. I have not shot film before. This camera is old and I restored it myself, and I've not restored a camera before. I don't know what to expect from these photos. I'm obviously hoping they're going to be good, but they might not be. They might be terrible, right? What we're going to do is we're going to have a look. We're going to laugh at the ones that are bad, presuming that there's going to be some bad ones. We're going to have a look at the ones that are good and see if there is anything good out of it, and just see what this camera looks like, what the images look like in 2024, a long time after the camera was made. I am honestly expecting a lot of shots to not come out right, to be overexposed or to not be in focus. In fact, I've seen a lot about this camera having poor focus, so I'm fully expecting that. So quite frankly, I will be happy with one good quality shot. I've got the photos here in these 2 files. I guess we just look at them, see if anything did come out of them, see if the camera is any good, see if I was actually taking decent shots the whole time or whether I was taking a bunch of white squares. We shall see. So we'll start with this one. This is the first roll. So I shot 2 rolls. This is roll 1, and we'll get right into it. I am gonna laugh at some of these if they're bad, if they're yeah, laugh with me. Like that one. Right, so that one was at Loch Lomond. Lovely day, although it doesn't really come across in that. That's just a focus problem. I mean the lighting. I think I got the lighting decent. I'm happy with the contrast, and the light and darks are not blown out or lost. I don't know what that focused on, if I'm being honest. It doesn't look like anything's in focus, which is odd. So that's unfortunate, but we move on. That's not too bad. I don't think the focus point's quite right, but it's not a million miles off, so I'll take it. Yeah, so this is the cottage we stayed in. Very nice place. I mean, if you could rotate this 90 degrees, you'd see the incredible view. So some nice memories were made in that garden on that bench, which is very cool. So that's nice. And this photo, I mean, I wouldn't blow it up because it's not sharp enough, but it is legible. Is that the right word to use for that? It could have certainly been worse, especially looking at that last one. I think that's Auburn. So at Auburn there's this lookout at the and you go up at the top and there's a whole big view. I think that's from there. That's way more zoomed in than I was expecting that to be, and nothing is in focus. Again, I'm going to make a prediction. I think the main issue we're going to have looking at these shots is most of them are going to be out of focus in some way. I know that camera notoriously has some problems with that, and mine had a problem with the focus wheel, which I did try to fix. Okay, so this one's not as sharp as I would have liked, but it's certainly better than that first one and the one we've just looked at. This is the view from the path leading up to the cottage, and it does capture the scene, just not quite as sharp as I would have liked it to. Okay, that's quite nice. A meeting valley of trees, and you can make out quite a bit of the detail there with the contrast, and it looks in focus to me. The sky doesn't look blown out. There's a lot of detail within the shadows there, which I'm quite happy with. Right. I can see the thumbnail here. I think I'm going to cut that out in the video so you don't know what's coming next. From here, it looks good. I would really, really like this. If any shot was going to come out good, it would be this one that I would want, that I would hope for. This shot would be beautiful. I would frame this big if this is good. And I'm just really hoping it's in focus. It's not. It's not in focus. Oh, I waited so long for this shot. This is Inverary Castle, and this was shot from the gardens. Beautiful gardens, beautiful castle. I would highly recommend going there if you're in the area. And you can see how gorgeous this place is, and I wanted to capture that on film. Shadows and the lights are nice, but it's just not sharp enough. Strange, because on that camera you've got 30 foot as your furthest, like numbered. And then you've got infinity. So if it's more than 30 feet, surely you put it on infinity and it should be fine. Unless I'm a fool. Apparently, I'm a fool. That one saddened me, if I'm being honest. I would have really liked that one to come out nice. But we move. Right, so this one, that's alright. It's canny. This one was at Inverary as well. It was on the little pier. And there was this big metal boat there. So I thought I'd get that in the foreground. And I'd get the loch and the hills in the background, and that all came out. It's a little more zoomed in than I was expecting. All of these have been, but this one's, you know, the important details are still there. So really it would have been better for this part of the boat here to have been the sharper bit rather than sort of here, but that's just on me with focus distance and guessing how far things were. I'm surprised that so far that all of these have been well lit, that the contrast has been right, and like that's what I thought I was going to mess up on personally, but instead it's been focus. This one was also took on Inverary Pier. Looking the other way, there was these two bright orange boys in the water. Obviously these are grey boys here. And I wanted to sort of centre them in the lower third. And they're almost centred, but not quite. And then just shoot a pretty basic but attractive shot. Now, actually, you know what? The infinity focus is focused on the clouds, not on the hills. So I don't know how you're meant to focus on hills and mountains and stuff if it focuses all the way to the clouds but not in the foreground. I'm not too mad about not getting that one. The Inverary Castle one hurt a lot more. Okay, so that's just terrible. That's objectively, in my opinion at least, just not a good shot. Nothing's in focus. The lighting's fine, but the subject isn't interesting anyway. I shot this through two standing stones, so there was meant to be two in the foreground, left and right. Obviously it was too zoomed in and it didn't catch that, which is unfortunate. I'll just forget I took that one, that'll be better. I'm just going to skip past that one. I think that's Loch Gilphead, and it's yeah, I like that actually. There's a bit of motion blur in there. You can clearly see where I've hit the shutter and the camera's moved a little bit, as there's like a ghosted double exposure here, which wasn't what I was going for, I will admit, but you know, it's where it's sharp, it is sharp. It is certainly focused correctly in the barrels in the foreground. This was shot inside of Springbank Distillery in the, I forget what they call them, dunnage room, where they keep all the casks. It was a 1 second exposure, which I was quite worried about how that would come out. But the lighting is perfect, I think. I actually kind of like the way that the skylights are glowing there. They're not skylights, actually, they're just lights on the ceiling. I like the way they're glowing. I like the contrast, and it's quite sharp on the barrels. I was expecting this one to be rough, but this one's actually quite good. I'm quite happy with that. A pleasant surprise, actually. And a not so pleasant surprise. This was taken in the same place, but looking down the path, I think I focused it at like, I can't remember, maybe 10 foot. I wanted Summit in focus, but apparently I don't get that. So, that's the first batch. There is a few in here that are good, actually. I don't mind some of these. There was this one I'm happy with. This one's okay, but really it would have been much better if it was sharper. This one's pretty good. I do like this one. This one's, it's okay, but it could have done with being sharper. And then this one I actually quite like. This is my favourite out of the first roll of film. And I'm especially gutted that this one didn't turn out, because this would have been, I'd have blown this up big and framed it if this had come out. So that one is honestly quite sad. On to roll number 2. I took this one in Tarbert, and there's a few Tarberts in Scotland. This one is Tarbert, and this is just looking out over the water from the actual sort of town. You know what? Those boats in the background are actually in focus, especially if you look here over at the far left. The lighting's okay. It's slightly blown out, I think, a little bit in the brighter parts of the clouds, but there's a decent reflection there, and there's a nice contrast between the line of trees and the water. And these boats and I don't know if they're masts, I don't know boat terminology, the tall arms, they're pretty sharp. At least on the left they're pretty sharp, which is strange actually, because all of those were equally far away and only the ones on the left are sharp, so there's probably something wrong with the lens. This shot was actually taken in the same place. That's quite nice actually. That's pretty good. This was taken in Tarbert in pretty much exactly the same spot. I'm just a few steps back, and there was this beautiful old car there. It was a vintage Citroen. I forget the model, but I'll put some on the screen. Gorgeous car, and I thought, I've got an old camera, I've got an old car here, I'm going to take a shot. So I did. And that car is sharp. That is tack sharp actually. And the lighting on here is pretty perfect. I'm quite content with that. This could have done with being a bit further back or a bit more zoomed out. I don't think I realised just quite how zoomed in the lens was, so it cut out some of the details I would have liked to be in the shot. And this is the sharpest the camera's been, very clearly. That's something to be happy with, I guess. Go on to the next one. Right, another one that is completely out of focus. What a surprise. This one was taken from Tarbert Castle. It's quite a nice view, but you'll never know that because it's not in focus. Yeah, that's just an unfortunate one. What's this one? I think that was meant to be of a sunset, if I remember rightly, from near the cottage where I was staying, looking out over the water. I don't even know. It's not level. It's way too zoomed in to get any of the contextual information. It's not in focus. That is just an unfortunate shot. It's not in focus. Again, that's just a non-shot if I've ever seen one. It's the same, to be honest. Nothing's in focus. I'm moving on. Alright, so this one's in focus at least. But there's really nothing much going on here. It's just a bunch of rocks. There's nothing too interesting. It looked much more interesting in person than it does on this film through that camera. That one is unfortunate as well. And this is interesting. So here in the middle is what I can only presume was an old war bunker. It was a big concrete bunker of some kind, and it was in the middle of nowhere. There was no sort of path to it, at least not an obvious one. It was right by the water on the coast, and it looked quite interesting where it was sat, and I thought, cool, I'll get a shot of it centered. And it is almost centered, and I did get a shot of it, but it's not in focus. I set the focus to infinity because it's more than 30 foot away, so that's what I presumed I should be doing. The sharpest thing in here is these rocks in the bottom left. This kind of area. And infinity certainly wasn't there, so I have no idea where the focus point is for that. I don't have a clue. So this one's wonky, but if I was to straighten this out and level it out, then it wouldn't be too bad. I really do quite like the detail in the clouds in the sky. There are some really thick, dark clouds there with just those, it's like almost like razor blade slices of the light coming through from the sky. And then this was like a really bright, vivid sunset. So you've got the sun beaming there. Nice effect as far as I'm concerned. So it could have been better, but it could have been worse, so I'll take it. I will take it. Completely way out of focus. I mean, if you couldn't tell, that was the cottage we stayed in. It's very nice, I can assure you of that. But you may never know by looking at this. So I'd say this roll of film was worse than the last. There was certainly less good shots on it. The sharpest one was here though. This is definitely by far the sharpest shot. Isn't the worst, but it's not incredible. That's about it. I don't like any of the rest of these shots. So I think this was largely not a good roll. So I'd say if we just put two of these together and have a look at all of the different shots here. Right, if we have a look at all of these shots, I would say, right, I'd say in total there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are decent shots, right? With the best certainly being this one and this one. This one isn't terrible, but it's not incredible. This one is a really sad loss to not have captured right. and then the rest are forgettable. But I am going to stand by what I said at the beginning. If I get one good shot out of this, I'm going to be happy. And I did. I got 5 decent shots, 2 that I actually really like, and the rest, the other 19, yeah. So it was, all in all, a pretty interesting experiment to see what this camera was like to shoot on. But what do I think? I'm not going to shoot on this again. This will be a rather attractive little ornament from now on. I don't think that camera will likely shoot another roll of film. That said, I really did enjoy the whole process of shooting, of picking out the shots, of thinking them through. I just don't think this was a good place to start my film journey, and to start learning film, and I knew that going in, but I just had to shoot this camera in Scotland, so I did anyway. I said at the beginning of the video I'd be happy with one good shot. There was 5 that I like, there was 2 that I would say are genuinely good, and the other 3 are decent. And the other 19 are either objectively just bad and came out wrong, or are forgettable. So I suppose that isn't the ideal outcome, but it's realistic and it is kind of what I expected going into this. I knew that these wouldn't all turn out right. I am gutted about the one of the castle though. That would have been such a nice shot to have good on film. I did get it digital and it's a beautiful shot, but to have that on film, medium format, blown up big on the wall, that would have been very nice. I'm definitely going to shoot more film. There's no doubt about that, but I am going to shoot it on cameras that are at least a bit more modern than that one, to at least have some reliability there, such as this one. I'm really looking forward to using this one. I bought it, should I tell you? I'm going to tell you. This was £10. I got this camera for a tenner. It's got a 50mm lens. There is a 28mm lens in here, and then there is a zoom lens in here as well. Really a bargain deal, I've got to say, and I'm quite looking forward to shooting some 35mm on this. If you've got some advice on film that would maybe make shooting on this worth trying again, then I am open to it. That said, I think this is probably beyond its years at this point, but it was a fun process to try it out anyway, and there was some cool results. If you enjoyed laughing at my terrible photos and appreciating with me the ones that turned out right, then please leave a like and drop some comments. Tell me how to get better at film. It's something I really do want to do. And I've got way more photography content. I'm so much better at non-film photography. So I know that this isn't the video to sell you on subscribing to see more. I promise I usually do better than this. I was just trying something new and having a bit of fun. So that's that. Right. Time for watching. I'm going to go cry in the other room at the load of money that vanished with those terrible photos. Bye.